pastors, we get to see, and we got that. Thank you, Cindy. One of the benefits we have is that we get to see unique things happening, success stories, unique ministries, exciting things. And it's a big district. I've discovered it's a big conference. And I'm amazed that there are so many pastors who don't know each other and don't know the incredible things going on. The joy is that we're a connection. And the intent of 30 on Thursday is to have a quick 30 minutes to talk about different topics. And today we're going to be talking to Madison Long Ailinger, who is pastor of Christ United Methodist Church in Staunton, who has recently written an article that is entitled "The Looking Forward to a Surprising Transformation." Madison, good morning.
Morning. Happy to be here, Dale. I'm very honored. I know there's a lot of people with a lot more experience than I have, so I appreciate you all coming here to see what you can learn from little old me. So I appreciate it.
Well, don't be intimidated by your youth. There's successful things going on where you are, and I think it's important to share them. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of background, where you're from, and your seminary?
Okay. Well, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, but both my parents and grandparents and great-grandfather, before he went to the war, went to Virginia Tech. So I ended up in Virginia, and I went to Virginia Tech, went to Duke Divinity School, and now I'm here in Staunton, Virginia. So that's about it. I'm happy to be here, if that counts as something about myself.
Indeed. Well, we're glad you're here. The format that I've laid out for these 30 on Thursdays, because as I've said, people's schedules are extremely busy. And so the intent is to be done in a quick 30 minutes, to spend about 10 minutes for me to ask some questions, to spend about 10 or 15 minutes for you all to ask questions and dialogue with the speaker. And then we'll wrap it up with 5 minutes of passing information, contact information, other resources that the speaker or you may have. And welcome, Warren Carswell. We see you popping in there. And who's on 434-547-0440 on the phone?
Nona Allen.
Hi, Nona. Hey, glad you were with us.
Hi, Dale.
Yeah, great. Thank you
you
for being with us. Okay, so let's start with some of the easy questions, and then I'll throw some hard questions on you, Madison. So you arrived at Christ Church, and tell me about your first 4 to 8 weeks in terms of what you saw in the church, especially on Sundays.
Okay. Well, I got to the church and we had a giant storm my first week there, right out of divinity school. The cross fell off the top, and I had a funeral my first week. So the first time I ever preached it as a single pastor, I also had a funeral. And so everything just kind of hit me like a storm. They had about 25 people there. There was a lot of political divide, a lot of anger, but they were excited for me to be there. A little cautious because of my age. A couple people did say, "Oh, we thought our church was going to die when we got a young 26-year-old pastor." And they are now happy I'm there. So there was a lot of work to be done when I got there, that's for sure.
And as I recall, you and I ran into each other in aisle 6 of Martin's grocery store. Was it Martin's?
Yes, it was, Dale.
And it was about your 5th week, and you had 4 funerals, I think, 3 or 4 in your first month.
Yes. Those definitely built resilience. I don't think I was always nervous about speaking in front of people, but having to do it so consistently in such hard, charged, emotional environments, I definitely went through the ringer. That's what you're saying, but.
So I've attended your church, and I've attended a lot of churches, and we don't want to. What I want to be careful with is not comparing past pastors to current. Each situation's different, and it's And also you're young and youthful, and some of us who've been around a while, we need to realize that some young pastors with new ideas are folks that we can learn from. I'm in my 40th year, 39th year as an elder, and I'm learning from you, Madison. So I think we all can. So I visited your church when there were those 25 people in that big sanctuary. I was unaware of what was that your church was growing until I showed up in May of this year and pulled into the parking lot and could hardly find a place to park. That was my first indication. Boy, things have changed here quickly. So can you talk to us a little bit about some things you say in your article, things that didn't work? Can you address a couple of traditional things that you were probably taught in seminary about church growth that you discovered didn't work before we go on to what did?
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is chasing people who've left. I think sometimes we think if we just reach out to everyone in the directory, reach out to all these people, that somehow that will cause growth. But what I've realized is it doesn't work. I mean, maybe it works for you. You might get a couple people here and there, but sometimes it's easier or better to find new people and create that strong community. Also, I realized, do I really want people who've left? I would rather have people who are there to stay, who are united in our church, than always being worried if something is going to make them unhappy, they'll leave. Does that make sense? That's the first one I can think of.
Okay. You also said things that didn't work are going door to door, handing out flyers. Did you all do that?
I went door to door. Yes, I got the door shoved in my face a bunch. I did talk to a lot of older, lonely people, though, who really needed the company, but none of them ended up coming to church. And so it was a great mission. I think that's what I realized. There's a difference between mission and outreach. And I think sometimes we assume our missions are going to create outreach. We assume if we have the daycare, those families will come. We assume if we help the community, those people will come. But outreach has to be organized and functional in a way that mission isn't. Mission is supposed to be for the community, and outreach is supposed to be to bring people in to the community. Does that make sense too? I might say, does that make sense, like 6 times? Just want to make sure you're all paying attention, or if you have any questions.
Now, let me hit a couple of I'm going to have a hardball question before I get to one that I think is effective. And I'm glad Peter Choi is here because I've seen him do this. Okay. You'd said a number 2 in your article, and if you all haven't read the article, Cindy has posted the link multiple times in our various social media, and I think she's posting it on the chat as well. You said going to Bible studies in small groups and that are not your own, and going and meeting with other pastors in other churches.
Yes.
Talk about that, because that could be perceived as people stealing.
Yes. No, I completely understand how it sounds, but I was in a Bible study once. I was leading it, and they were posing the same question, and I heard, but are they being spiritually fed? And for me, it doesn't matter what church they go to, but if they feel something is missing and they end up coming to mine, I think spiritually feeding people is more important than what church they go to. And that is ultimately their decision. And I think people also want to know you're invested in them. Because if you just see someone on the street, hey, come to my church. But if you show up at their church, you go to their Bible study, you get to know their family. Even if they don't go to your church, that shows your intentions are good and rooted in them and not what you can get out of them. So I've made great relationships. I went to another Bible study. All 10 of them were coming to church on Sunday, just because I showed up and was invested in them. We get so caught up in being in our own churches. Sometimes we forget there are people who are looking for that and are open to that. Okay.
So when you say you went to a Bible study, was it a Bible study sponsored by another church or just a Bible study?
Well, the Bible study I went to yesterday was actually a girl I met in the park. She invited me to her Bible study. And
interesting.
it's just a house church. And I went there yesterday and just met people. Because I'm always saying, hey, would you like to come to church? And she said, would you like to come to my church? And so I took her up on it. And
Hey,
now they're coming
Madison,
to church.
you shared something interesting with me, and you said
Mhm.
that this was a couple weeks ago, where you said, you know, you will run into people and say, how would you like to come to my church? Or do you have a church? And they will say, oh, yes, I go to church X or church Y or church Z. But then you very often that is a discussion stopper, but you ask the next question. Well, do you go there every week? And many times people will say, well, I haven't been there in 3 years.
Right, but Dale, actually, that was the question you asked. I asked them, what's your pastor's name? And I always know their pastor. And then they open up to me. So if we learn of the pastors around us, people are so closed off, especially to me as a young woman pastor. But if I say, oh yeah, Ryan up the hill, I know him, it blows their mind that someone young like me could know their old Baptist pastor. But it's because I reached out, I had a meal, I know what's going on. And most people, if they'll say yes to me, they'll say yes to you. But I do appreciate that question too, Dale. I just wanted to clarify that I think I would feel a little uncomfortable asking, so how often have you been there?
Or when was the last time? Okay, maybe that was me. I forget. I'm getting
It's
old.
okay.
So you say something in your article about how getting lunch or coffee, or in point 6, you would say that I often invite them to lunch. 99% of the visitors. I don't know if I don't know if I had shared this with you, that when I first met Peter Choi, who's down there in the left corner of the Brady Bunch squares, he took me out to lunch. And I remember saying, Peter, this is you don't have to do this. This is so nice of you. He says, no, when new members come to my church, I take them to, I ask them where they like to eat and I take them out. I said, really? He said, well, yes, breaking bread with new people is it's hospitality. So can you tell us a little bit about that before I open up the floor?
Yes, I think Peter's doing a great job. I heard about that and taking people to sushi. And sometimes I think people are kind of taken aback by that, I've realized, but it does work. And so you just got to find out, meet them where they are, what's most comfortable with them. Sometimes it's walking around the park. Sometimes it's just getting coffee. I realized if I just say, hey, you want to get dinner? People say, oh, okay. I've had so many people do that. But if you say, hey, I'd love to hear more about you and tell you about the church, then they're more open to it. I've learned ministry is a lot how you approach people. You can scare people off really quickly, but if you show up with genuine love and meet them where they are, I think that's honestly what's helped me most.
So do you like ask them, hey, what's your favorite coffee shop or place? Let's meet up, so that it's in a comfortable place for them.
Yes, but I try to do that too.
Okay. So those first few Sundays that I was there, and then I'm going to open this up. There were about 25 people. You've got last Sunday I popped in on your 50th anniversary, and there were well over 100. But I know that's not just because of the anniversary. You're seeing significant growth.
And God is a huge reason. But yes, I just wanted to say that before we continue.
You've got the right focus. Cindy has posted the link. If there are any, let me open it up to everyone. She's got about 6 or 7 points. Preaching well for 8 to 12 minutes. I see that. I attended, before I moved up here, one of the largest United Methodist churches in Memphis, with one of the well-known pastors who had graduated from Emory, from Candler, and he was an 8 to 12 minute preacher. I was amazed, and that was a church with a staff of 40. It was an 8 to 12 minute sermon, and is there more you want to say about that, Madison?
I'm laughing because I think I preached for 20 minutes last Sunday or a couple of Sundays ago. So I realized it comes down to content, and that's a whole debate on if you should preach for a long period of time or not. But I've noticed when I preach for a less amount of time, I've brought in more visitors and more people have stayed. But that's just growth. That's not about content. Your particular context might like longer sermons. Adam Hamilton, for example, great guy. He preaches for 40 minutes and people like that. But for me, as a young woman, I barely have their attention as is. And so for them to listen and grasp and treat me as their pastor, I had to not preach for that long. So then they realized, oh, we can get something from her. And then over time, it comes in waves. But I do think sometimes we lose people. We can all see it, right? Raise your hand if you've seen yourself lose somebody during church. Okay, one person. I'm sure everybody else has. Thank you. You can see it. And so for me, if we can see that, why do we keep going? We're there to show God and show God's love. I wonder why we keep talking even though no one is listening.
Especially if they look at their watch. All right, let's take the next couple of minutes and open up the floor. Questions, comments, thoughts, salutations.
No questions, because I usually ask you the questions when I think of them, but just proud of what you're doing.
Thanks.
Kudos, you rock.
Jeff's known me since I was 19 and saw me and he said, oh my gosh, her brain thinks like mine. And so Jeff has mentored me all the way until this point. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for being here.
Mm.
And as I listen to you, Madison, it sounds like you are not just a local pastor, you sound like a missionary, in your area. That's really great.
Thank you, Peter. Sounds like you are too. If you have any questions about anything, just let me know. Yes, Warren.
Hey, Madison. I've enjoyed my time sitting with you as well during conference, getting to know you. As you know, Jeff and I are partnering together in Genesis, and I just love your enthusiasm for God and for people. What I'm curious about is, do you have like a next step on how you can mentor people in your church and community to do what you're doing?
Mentor, a next step in mentoring people in church growth or in discipleship?
Yes and yes. I mean, you're one person, so how can you duplicate yourself through your people?
I think what I've noticed is modeling it. I think doing all those things and saying how they're working to your people, because my lay leader, love him to death, but he went into our board meeting and said, okay, here's some conversation starters so you can talk to people. And they did not like that. They said, oh, we know how to talk to people. We know how to reach out to people. So it can be hard in that aspect. But I've noticed modeling it, saying, oh, look, everybody, I reached out to these people and now they're here. And through that, a retired pastor has now been coming to my church. But once he started doing it, it helped even more. I think you just need at least 3 key leaders that are doing this, and then other people will start. I have a lady who's been attending my church on and off for 3 years, and she said people are nicer now. She doesn't know why, but ever since I got there, people are nicer. So people are watching us, watching what we say, watching how we show up. And so I think it's important to tell them when things are working so they can be a part of it too.
Yeah, thank you. Keep up the good work you're doing.
Oh, thanks.
Madison, sometimes when churches grow, there is the factor of the likability of the pastor. I know you'd said that this is a God thing, but it hit me recently when I reunited with a family in a church that I'd been in 30 years ago. And I asked them, hey, how is the such and such a family that joined a year before I left? And they said, oh, as soon as you left, they quit. They were there because of you.
Mhm.
and my heart kind of dropped. They went to another church, but the point is, there's an attraction, a magnetism to your enthusiasm, your youthfulness, your passion. I guess you may have answered my question when you said you're doing some equipping, or the retired pastor who I know is there doing some equipping, so that at a point in the future when the district superintendent, whoever it might be, moves you, that the church continues in its current trajectory.
Yes, it definitely is a worry, but I also think it's how you prepare them for the next pastor. For example, growing up, we got our first woman pastor, and Dr. Sam had been there before her. He'd been there 15 years. And he told them, he said, if I could pick a pastor for you to have, I would pick her. And he really set us up for that. So I think sometimes, yes, people might leave because they loved me, but whoever is the next pastor after me, I will prepare the church, say, this person is wonderful. I will get to know that person. I will see what they're doing. Because I think the worst thing we can do is grow a church and then leave it, and it dies because it was rooted in us and not in mission and ministry. And so I do worry about that, but I'm hoping by the time I've been here a while that it's no longer just all excited about me. And I don't know. You also got to remember that, yes, I'm young, and yes, I bring a lot of energy to the table, but a lot of people still want a wiser pastor who's been in this a while, someone who has a lot of prayer experience. And I noticed that at the 50th anniversary, they loved him. So don't think that youth is just the way to grow the church. I guess when a lot of our people, especially in this area who are older, are looking for that older, more wise pastor. So we're all wonderful in our own special way.
Yeah, I think a challenge that a district superintendent has, I'm not a DS, but I work with one, is that churches want a pastor who is youthful in their 20s with 40 years of experience, a PhD, 10 quarters of CPE, and vast experience, and
Who will work for minimum salary.
and who will work for them. There you go, Doug. Thank you. Any other questions?
I've got one. Madison, how are you with boundaries? How are you getting fed yourself and making sure you're not going to burn out? You're doing so much. How are you protecting your time?
I guess when I was in Duke Divinity School, they said boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. So when I came in, I had really big boundaries. So to answer your question, I've found a bunch of pastors around me. And so I spend a lot of time just talking to pastors, and that fills me up. And I also have my husband, and we're about to celebrate our 1-year marriage anniversary. So we're going there. The thing about being the lead pastor is you kind of make your own schedule. So yes, I end up checking in on people every day, but I finish up work about 3 o'clock every day, because that's what I decided, just to have that afternoon after lots of hard work and rest. And so I think you've got to find out what works for you, because you do end up working every day. But if you have that afternoon to yourself, as long as nothing comes up, I think that helps. And Sabbath. Reverend Doug, I'm not saying I don't have a Sabbath. You've got to figure out when you can have rest. And I feel very rested. I feel so lucky to be a pastor. We're one of the one professions where we get to make our own schedule. Yes, we're always on call, but we don't have to work 8 to 5. I feel like there's so many times in the day where we get energy, and I love it. Love it so much. Does that help answer the question? I know I said a lot of stuff. Okay.
Well, Madison, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. And for all of you, a couple of notes before I close us in prayer to keep us in a real 30 on Thursday. Cindy has posted some links in the chat side. This is being recorded, as you all know, and this will be available on the district website under the resource page, Cindy?
Sorry, I was typing. Sure, yes, we'll put it there. Put it under the resource.
You'll be able to see these 30 on Thursdays, and you'll be able to watch them again. You have your cell phones with your Google calendars. I invite you to do the following now. Take out your Google calendar and mark November 16th. That's the next Thursday, 30 on Thursday with Robert Stutz. And your lay member, Robert, is it when I'm thinking the lead, wow.
Yes,
It's who?
Jimmy Basham.
Jenny Basham, yeah. And so Robert is going to be talking about getting into children into church in an alternative way. On December 7th, Mandy Newman is going to talk about how she prepares her worship and her sermon with a group of people called a Theo team. In January, on the 11th, and this is all available online, but January 11th, Mike Derflinger and Doug Canny are going to talk about their nurture ministry teams. January 25th, Jeff Wilson and Warren Carswell, and it's Wanda, I believe, are going to talk about something very exciting, and that is that these two churches have come together and are doing some exciting things. And I think a lot of our churches in similar areas are looking at that being a reality in the future. And that'll be an interesting discussion. How do you move congregations that probably need to come together in that direction in a positive and healthy way? And then finally, for the first series or first set, February 8th, just as we head into Lent, Peter Choi from Fishersville. This is his third round of doing a devotional book, a daily devotional book with his church. It's amazing, and it's public. It looks like something you would publish, but it's for the congregation. And Pete will be sharing that with us. All right, I have 9:27. Any saved rounds, as we said in the Navy, before I close us in prayer? All right, Madison, we applaud you. Thanks for being the first person on the ball field for the World Series as we start a new way of being connected. Let me remind you all that as you see the themes that Cindy posted and what's coming up, think of key lay people, because as Madison said, we can't do it alone. So share these links with lay people, church members, get the word out, invite them, and make it a team opportunity to hear a theme or something you might want to address. And if there's something you're doing, because I'm going to be doing this monthly, I only have up to February 8th, but I will continue to do this because there are a whole lot more exciting things going on in the district. And I think it's important for us to share. God, we give you thanks for Madison, for her ministry, for the way you're working with her in that part of Staunton. To that community, we ask that you continue to bless her and Ben as they come up on year one of their marriage and their time together. Bless the entire congregation as Christ Staunton moves into its 51st year of service to the community, and bless each and every one of us here today as we go forth on this Thursday, heading into the weekend, to preach, to pray, to serve, to gather, and to be your witnesses here in the Valley Ridge District. We give thanks for the opportunity, and we give thanks for the connection, and we give thanks for your grace and love. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you
Dale.
all. Have a great Thursday.
Thank you. You too,
See
Dale.
you all next week.
Thank you.